The massive crystalline chamber of the Kraxan High Council sparkled with the light of 3 suns streaming through its transparent walls. Lead scientist Day adjusted his ceremonial robes, his gray skin catching the light as he stepped forward to address the gathered council members. The holographic display behind him shimmered to life, projecting a beautiful blue-green planet against the backdrop of space. Esteemed council members, our deep space scouts have discovered a new world in Sector 7, Dez said, his voice echoing in the chamber. The natives call it Earth. With a wave of his hand, the hologram zoomed in to show sprawling cities, networks of roads, and various military installations across the planet's surface. Admiral Tai leaned forward in her seat, her sharp eyes studying the images with military precision. Her decorated uniform marked her as one of the Empire's most successful commanders, though some whispered her rapid rise through the ranks came from an eagerness to use force rather than diplomacy. "Tell us about their defensive capabilities," she demanded, her fingers drumming against the crystalline table. Day brought up new images showing Earth's military forces. Their technology is remarkably primitive by our standards. Their most advanced vehicles still use combustion engines burning refined fossil fuels. Their aircraft are limited by atmospheric flight, and their space program has only managed to reach their own moon. Several council members laughed openly at this revelation. Admiral Tay's lips curled into a predatory smile. And their weapons? Equally primitive, Dag confirmed, displaying images of Earth's military hardware. They rely primarily on chemical propulsion, what they call bullets and missiles. They have crude nuclear weapons, but nothing approaching our particle beam technology or antimatter warheads. The council leader Jin, oldest and most respected of the gathered aliens, raised a hand for silence. His ancient eyes studied the rotating image of Earth carefully. What of their population? Their resources? Approximately 8 billion inhabitants, Day reported. The planet is rich in minerals, water, and organic compounds. Their society is divided into numerous nation-states, often in conflict with each other. They have no unified planetary defense system. Admiral Ta stood up, her ceremonial armor gleaming. Honorable Council, I've conquered 12 worlds for our glorious empire. Never have I seen such an easy target. These humans are practically defenseless against our technology. Their divisions make them weak. I can have a conquest fleet ready within 1 planetary rotation. Jin stroked his chin thoughtfully. Any signs they're aware of our existence? No, Council Leader, Day replied. We've maintained full stealth protocols during our observation. Though, he paused, bringing up new images, they seem oddly preoccupied with the idea of alien life. Their entertainment media is full of stories about extraterrestrial contact. Primitive superstitions, Ta dismissed with a wave. It will make them easier to subjugate when they see their childish fantasies pale in comparison to our real power. The council members murmured in agreement. Jin raised his hands for attention. Very well. Admiral Tai, you have permission to begin invasion preparations. Earth will make an excellent addition to our collection of conquered worlds. What none of them noticed, deep in the lower levels of their massive space station, was their human observation team. These were captives from various conquered worlds, chosen for their ability to monitor and translate Earth's communications. As they watched Earth's internet traffic flow across their screens, the movies, the books, the games, all depicting humanity fighting against alien invaders, they couldn't help but smile. One worker, Minho, leaned over to his colleague Jun and whispered, "They'd really have no idea, do they?" Jun shook his head, trying to hide his grin as he continued monitoring a stream of Earth's military communications. They think all those stories are just entertainment. They don't realize that humans have been mentally preparing for this exact scenario for over a century, Minho finished. He glanced at a screen showing humans training for urban warfare, developing new weapons, and conducting space flight exercises. The Kraxan think Earth will be easy because humans are divided. They don't understand that nothing unites humans faster than a common enemy. Jun said softly, watching as Earth's military forces conducted yet another joint exercise. The Kraxan about to learn what every human child knows from their stories. Sometimes the ones who look primitive are the most dangerous of all. Above them, the Kraxan Council continued their planning, completely unaware that their easy conquest was about to become the biggest mistake in their empire's history. As the three suns sat outside the crystal chamber, casting long shadows across the floor, the countdown to humanity's greatest test and greatest triumph had begun. Dark shadows swept across Earth's cities as the massive Kraxan warships descended through the atmosphere. The vessels, each larger than the biggest human aircraft carrier, moved into formation with mechanical precision. Their sleek, metallic hulls reflected the sunlight, creating an intimidating display of power meant to crush any thought of resistance. Admiral Ta stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Imperial Dawn, watching through the view screens as her forces took position. Her black uniform was perfectly pressed, metals gleaming under the ship's lights. "Begin the first phase," she commanded, her voice cold and confident. The initial strikes targeted military bases worldwide. Particle beams cut through concrete and steel like paper, vaporizing hangars, runways, and command centers. Ta smiled as she watched explosions bloom across the surface of Earth. According to their battle computers, they had destroyed 60% of Earth's major military installations in the first hour. "Send the demand for surrender," she ordered, expecting the humans to quickly realize the futility of resistance. The response came not in words, but in action. In the mountains of Afghanistan, a group of fighters who had spent decades mastering guerrilla warfare led a Kraxan ground unit into a narrow valley. The aliens' advanced sensors were suddenly blinded by simple smoke grenades, while avalanches triggered by precisely placed explosives buried their walking tanks in tons of rock and snow. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous guides helped local military units ambush Kraxan patrols. The aliens' advanced armor proved less effective when they sank into carefully disguised pit traps, their technology useless against simple but lethal wooden spikes. "Admiral," a junior officer called out in alarm, "we've lost contact with Ground Force 7 in what they call Vietnam." Ta frowned. "How is that possible? They had a full complement of our newest battle mechs." "The humans. They used the underground tunnels." "Admiral, decades-old tunnel systems. They emerged behind our lines, planted primitive explosives on the mech's leg joints, then disappeared back underground before our forces could respond." More reports flooded in. In urban areas, humans were using their intimate knowledge of their cities to deadly effect. Kraxan forces entering New York found themselves caught in narrow streets, ambushed from windows and rooftops. Their energy shields could stop bullets, but not the rain of homemade thermite charges that melted through their armor. "Impossible," Ta muttered, watching as another ground force reported heavy losses. She slammed her fist on the command console. "They're adapting too quickly. How are they coordinating these attacks?" Her tactical officer, looking increasingly nervous, brought up a global communication display. "The humans, they're using something called social media and messaging apps. They're sharing successful tactics instantly across the entire planet. Every victory against us becomes a learning opportunity for all of them." In the streets of Seoul, civilians were turning their own technologies against the invaders. Delivery drones, modified with explosive packages, swarmed Kraxan positions. Teenagers used gaming skills to pilot remote-controlled cars loaded with improvised explosives under alien vehicles. The Kraxan's artificial intelligence predicted that major cities would be pacified within hours. Instead, every urban center became a nightmare of resistance. Humans used their buildings as weapons, deliberately collapsing structures onto alien forces. They turned their underground subway systems into fortress networks. Even their primitive projectile weapons proved devastating in close quarters where the Kraxan's superior technology had less room to maneuver. "Admiral," her second-in-command reported, "Ground Force 3 is requesting immediate evacuation from a place called Finland. The humans there, They're using something called ski troops and winter warfare tactics. Our forces can't track them in the snow, and they're picking us apart. Tai watched in growing horror as more red indicators appeared on her tactical display, each representing a Kraxan unit in distress or destroyed. The humans weren't fighting according to any logical military doctrine. They mixed ancient tactics with modern technology. Formal military units worked seamlessly with civilian resistance groups, and they showed no sign of giving up even when faced with overwhelming force. These primitives, she hissed, they're not following any of the standard conquest response patterns. Where is their surrender? Where is their submission to superior technology? A message flashed across her screen. The humans had captured their first Kraxan walker. Instead of treating it as a trophy, they were already stripping it down, studying its weaknesses, preparing to turn the invaders' own weapons against them. As the Earth's sun set on the first day of invasion, Admiral Tai faced an uncomfortable truth. The easy conquest was becoming a nightmare, and the humans were just getting started. In the darkness below, millions of humans were sharing information, adapting strategies, and preparing for tomorrow's resistance. Their determination was unlike anything the Kraxan had ever encountered in their long history of conquest. The Admiral looked at the beautiful blue planet below, now dotted with the fires of battle, and felt something she hadn't experienced in her entire military career: doubt. These humans weren't just fighting back. They were learning, adapting, and growing stronger with each passing hour. For the first time, she wondered if the Kraxan Empire had finally met its match in these supposedly primitive beings who simply refused to accept defeat. The fluorescent lights of the underground laboratory cast a harsh glow on the captured Kraxan energy rifle lying on the workbench. Dr. Song adjusted her safety goggles and carefully removed the weapon's outer casing, revealing a complex array of crystals and circuitry inside. Around her, a team of international scientists watched with intense focus, taking notes and recording every detail. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the central power core. "The Kraxan aren't doing anything magical. They're using quantum field manipulation, exactly what we've been theorizing about for the past decade." Her fingers traced the pathways of energy flow through the weapon. "We just never had the right crystals to make it work." In the observation room above, the United Earth Defense Council members leaned forward, watching through reinforced glass. General Park turned to his colleagues, his expression brightening for the first time since the invasion began. "How long until we can reproduce this technology?" Dr. Song held up a small crystal, its surface catching the light. "We already have. This is Earth-made, grown in our lab last night. It's not as efficient as theirs yet, but it works." She slotted the crystal into the modified weapon housing they had built. The rifle hummed to life, its power indicators glowing bright blue. Meanwhile, in a converted automotive factory in Seoul, Engineer Juan wiped sweat from his forehead as he made final adjustments to his latest creation. The factory floor was filled with a mix of Earth's tanks and captured Kraxan technology. Workers moved between the vehicles, installing hybrid systems that merged both worlds of technology. "Start it up," Juan called out to his team. The modified tank's engine roared to life, but now it was accompanied by the distinctive hum of Kraxan shield technology. A shimmering field of energy surrounded the vehicle, similar to the alien's own defenses, but with a uniquely human twist. "The shields are stable," reported his assistant, "and power consumption is 30% less than the original Kraxan design." Juan allowed himself a small smile. They designed their shields to stop energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles. We modified them to work better against their own technology. He patted the tank's armor. Plus, we kept the traditional armor underneath. 2 layers of protection are better than 1. The news of these breakthroughs spread rapidly through Earth's remaining defense networks. Scientists and engineers worldwide shared their findings, each discovery building on the last. In Brazil, researchers found ways to miniaturize Kraxan power cells. Indian tech companies began mass-producing modified versions of alien communication devices, African engineers developed new alloys by combining Earth metals with Kraxan materials. Aboard the Kraxan flagship, Chief Scientist Da stared at the reports in horror. "This is impossible," he whispered, watching video feeds of humans operating modified versions of Kraxan technology. "They've had our technology for less than 2 weeks." He rushed to Admiral Tay's command center, his usual composure shattered. "Admiral, we have a serious problem. The humans, they're not just using our captured equipment. They're understanding it, replicating it, and—" He paused, almost unable to say the words, "improving it." Tay's eyes narrowed. "Improving? That's absurd. They're primitives." Dai brought up multiple video feeds on the main screen. "Look, they've combined their primitive slug-throwing weapons with our energy technology. They're using their existing vehicles as platforms for our shield systems. They've even found ways to bypass our security protocols that we never considered." Back on Earth, Dr. Song's team made another breakthrough. They had discovered that normal Earth glass, when treated with a specific frequency of energy, could replicate the properties of Kraxan sensor crystals at a fraction of the cost. "It's like they deliberately made everything more complicated than it needed to be," she explained to her colleagues. "Sometimes the simple solution is better." In Seoul, Wan's modified tanks were already rolling out of the factory. Each one represented a perfect fusion of human practical engineering and alien advanced technology. The crews found them easier to operate than pure Kraxan vehicles, as the controls had been adapted to familiar human designs. They thought their technology was superior because it was more complex, Wan told his team as they prepared another batch of vehicles. But sometimes strength comes from simplicity. The Kraxan Empire had never encountered a species that could adapt their technology so quickly. Their other conquered worlds had taken years or decades to even begin understanding their advanced systems. But humans had something different. Centuries of imagining and theorizing about advanced technology through science fiction. Decades of working towards similar goals. And most importantly, the ability to think outside established patterns. As Earth's fighters began pushing back against the invasion with their hybrid weapons and vehicles, the Kraxan faced a terrifying reality. They hadn't just given their technology to a primitive species, they had handed it to one that had been mentally preparing to receive it for generations. Every science fiction story, every theoretical physics paper, every engineering challenge had helped prepare humanity for this moment. Dr. Song looked at the rows of Earth-made energy rifles, each one better than the last. Engineer Wan watched his improved combat vehicles roll out to defend Earth. Across the planet, humans took alien technology and made it their own. The Kraxan had expected to find primitives playing with tools they couldn't understand. Instead, they found equals who had just been waiting for the right resources to prove themselves. The tide of war was about to turn, and the Kraxan would learn that sometimes the student could surpass the teacher in ways they never imagined possible. The Kraxan war room was filled with tense silence as Intelligence Officer Yu stood before the assembled command staff. His usual neat appearance was disheveled, dark circles under his eyes showing the strain of sleepless nights analyzing human behavior patterns. The holographic displays behind him showed dozens of battles, each one defying the Empire's combat algorithms. "High Command, I regret to report that our psychological warfare tactics are failing," Yu began, his voice tight with frustration. "These humans, they simply don't react the way any species should." He played a recording of a recent battle. A small group of humans had held a strategic position against overwhelming Kraxan forces, buying time for civilians to evacuate. "Look here," Yu pointed. All tactical computers indicated they should retreat. Instead, they held position, laughing and making jokes even as our forces closed in. Commander Min stepped forward, adding to the report. "In this engagement, we observe humans using what they call kung fu alongside our own stolen energy weapons. Their martial arts, developed centuries before spaceflight, proved surprisingly effective in close-quarter combat with our troops." The recording shifted to urban combat footage. "And here," Min continued, "a human unit we encountered used something they called shotgun diplomacy. a primitive scatter weapon combined with shield technology. They shouldn't even think to combine such different levels of technology, but it works. You brought up more data streams. Their emotional responses make no sense. When we destroy their cities, instead of demoralizing them, it makes them fight harder. They create songs and art about their resistance. They turn their defeats into rallying cries. The assembled officers watched as clips played of humans rescuing each other under heavy fire, sacrificing tactical advantages to save single individuals. One showed a human soldier throwing herself on a Kraxum plasma grenade to save her unit, another of civilians running into burning buildings to save strangers. Their behavior cannot be predicted by any known combat model, you explained. We expected them to break under pressure, to turn against each other as our previous conquests did. Instead, their responses seem almost random to our analysis. Commander Min highlighted another battle recording. This human unit was completely surrounded, all escape routes cut off. Instead of surrendering, they started playing loud music and charged our lines while singing something called "Never Gonna Give You Up." Our troops were so confused they actually hesitated. They use humor as a weapon, you added. When we intercepted their communications, we found them sharing what they call memes about the invasion. They're making jokes about us, turning our fearsome image into something they can laugh at. It's devastating to troop morale. The recordings continued showing bizarre human tactics. A group of civilians had repelled a Kraxan advance by using construction equipment as makeshift weapons. Another showed humans using social media to coordinate global resistance movements through cat pictures and coded pizza orders. Their creativity in combat is unprecedented, Min said. One human unit disabled our walker sensors with simple paint balloons. Another used ancient tiger traps modified with modern explosives. They combine primitive and advanced techniques in ways our tactical computers can't process. You brought up psychological profiles of captured humans. When we interrogate them, they respond with either defiant humor or confusing statements. One kept reciting something called Rick Astley lyrics. Another would only communicate in movie quotes. We can't break them because they don't fear us. They've been imagining fighting aliens their entire lives. The command staff watched in growing concern as more examples played out. Humans using sports equipment as weapons alongside stolen Kraxan technology. Civilian resistance groups coordinating complex operations using pizza delivery routes as cover. Children reprogramming toy drones to confuse Kraxan sensors. Their emotional responses particularly confuse our troops, you continued. They form strong bonds with each other regardless of cultural differences. They'll fight harder to save one wounded comrade than to secure a strategic position. They create art and music about their struggles even as we bombard their cities. Commander Min pulled up another tactical display. Look at this battle formation. It makes no logical sense until you realize they based it on something called a football play. They're adapting their sports strategies to space combat. How do we predict an enemy that thinks like this? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Kraxan Empire had conquered many worlds, but they had always relied on being able to predict and counter their enemies' responses. Humans, with their illogical courage, their ability to laugh in the face of death, and their wildly creative combat techniques, were proving impossible to calculate. There's one more thing, you added quietly. They're not just fighting for survival now. They're fighting because they're enjoying the challenge. Every victory, no matter how small, becomes a celebration. Every defeat just makes them more determined. They're treating this invasion like the ultimate test of humanity's potential. As if to emphasize his point, the latest intercepted human broadcast played on the screens. It showed Earth's fighters charging into battle while playing something called "Welcome to the Jungle," their faces lit with fierce joy as they engaged Kraxan forces with a mix of stolen technology and improvised weapons. The Kraxan commanders looked at each other uneasily. They had expected to find primitive savages. Instead, they found an enemy that turned their very unpredictability into a weapon, who could laugh in the face of death, and who seemed to grow stronger with every challenge. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Kraxan Empire faced an enemy they couldn't understand, and that made humans the most dangerous species they had ever encountered. In the cold depths of the Pacific Ocean, Captain Sun stood in the control room of the U.S. Barracuda, a modified Ohio-class submarine. The vessel had undergone radical changes in the past months, combining Earth's most advanced stealth technology with salvaged Kraxan systems. The crew worked silently at their stations, each person knowing this mission would change the course of the war. "All systems check complete," reported his executive officer. "Kraxan shield integration is stable. Nuclear reactor successfully linked to alien power systems." Sun nodded, his expression serious. "Begin surface procedure." He turned to address the crew through the internal communications system. "Remember your training. We're about to do something no human vessel has ever done before." The massive submarine broke through the ocean's surface, water cascading off its dark hull. Instead of stopping there, the vessel continued to rise, defying gravity as Kraxan anti-gravity systems lifted it from the sea. The crew felt a moment of weightlessness as their submarine, designed for ocean depths, began its journey to space. High above Earth, Admiral Todd was reviewing battle reports when the first alarm sounded. "Unidentified vessel approaching fleet position," announced the tactical officer. "But that's impossible. Our sensors show it has the acoustic signature of a water vessel." Before Ty could respond, more contacts appeared on their screens. Dozens of large metal containers, painted with Earth Shipping Company logos, were moving into attack position. They had been hidden among the debris field of previous battles, waiting for this moment. "They'd done what?" Ta screamed as the first reports came in. "They're using shipping containers as torpedo tubes in space." That shouldn't even work. But it did work. The containers split open, revealing modified submarine-launched missiles, now equipped with Kraxan propulsion systems. The human engineers had realized that the principles of underwater warfare weren't so different from space combat. Both involved fighting in 3 dimensions in hostile environments. Captain Sun's voice crackled across all frequencies, deliberately broadcasting in the clear. "This is the U.S. Barracuda to all Earth forces. Operation Deep Space is go. Give them hell." More submarines emerged from Earth's oceans, their black hulls gleaming in the sunlight as they rose into space. The Kraxan fleet, arranged in traditional combat formations, found themselves facing an enemy that approached space warfare from a completely different perspective. Evasive maneuvers. Tai ordered as the first wave of human attacks began, but her ships, designed for space combat, were suddenly facing vessels that combined the stealth capabilities of submarines with space technology. The humans had effectively turned their submarines into silent hunters of space. The modified containers proved to be more than just launch platforms. Some contained swarms of small drones, others held electronic warfare equipment. The humans had taken their simple steel boxes and turned them into a deadly serious space warfare system. "Multiple hits on Destroyer Group 7, reported Ta's tactical officer, his voice shaking. "The humans, they're using their submarine hunting techniques in space. Our standard formations are perfect targets for their torpedo spreads." Sun watched from the Barracuda's command center as his crew executed maneuvers they had practiced countless times underwater. "Launch acoustic countermeasures," he ordered, deploying devices that now fooled both sonar and Kraxan sensors. The submarine's natural stealth capabilities, enhanced by alien technology, made it nearly invisible to the enemy fleet. In orbit around Earth, shipping containers that had been quietly positioned over months now revealed themselves as weapons platforms. The Kraxan had ignored them as space debris, never imagining that humans would turn simple cargo containers into orbital weapon systems. "Admiral," a junior officer reported to Tai, "we're detecting more Earth vessels rising from the Southern Ocean. They're using modified fishing trawlers equipped with our shield technology. The humans have turned their entire maritime fleet into a space force." Tai watched in horror as her carefully positioned fleet found itself under attack from directions they never expected. The humans had taken their centuries of naval warfare experience and applied it to space combat in ways the Kraxan had never imagined possible. Earth's improvised space fleet moved with surprising coordination. Fishing boats turned gunships attacked in swarms, while converted submarines conducted deep strike missions against Kraxan capital ships. Even civilian cargo vessels have been transformed into supply ships and repair stations, creating a sustainable logistics network in space. Status report. Ta demanded as another explosion rocked her flagship. "We've lost contact with our entire Eastern Fleet sector," came the response. "The humans are using their naval warfare doctrines in space. They're creating convoy systems, using wolfpack tactics, implementing submarine warfare strategies. Our ships don't know how to counter these methods." Captain Sun allowed himself a small smile as another Kraxan cruiser fell to his submarine's attack. The aliens had expected humans to approach space combat like them, with predetermined formations and standard tactics. Instead, humanity had taken their oldest form of warfare, naval combat, and adapted it for the final frontier. As the battle continued, more Earth vessels rose from the oceans, each one a testament to human ingenuity. They had taken their existing technology, combined it with captured alien systems, and created something entirely new. The Kraxan's space superiority was being challenged not by advanced technology, but by humanity's ability to adapt their ancient warfare techniques to a new battlefield. The counterattack had begun, and the Kraxan Empire was learning that sometimes the most effective weapons weren't the most advanced. They were the ones your enemy never expected you to use. In the Grand Council chamber of the Kraxan Empire, Council leader Jin watched as the holographic displays showed red warning indicators spreading across their territory map. Each flashing point represented another world in open rebellion, inspired by Earth's unexpected resistance against their supposedly invincible conquerors. The Proxima colony representative, a tall being named Corey, stood before the council with unmistakable defiance in his stance. "For centuries, you told us resistance was futile, that your technology and military might were unbeatable. Then humans proved you wrong." Jin's ancient fingers gripped his ceremonial staff tighter. Around him, other council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats as more reports of rebellion flooded their data streams. The humans hadn't just defended their world. They had shattered the myth of Kraxan invincibility. The humans did more than resist. Corey continued, his voice growing stronger. "They showed us that your technology isn't magic, that your weapons can be understood, copied, and improved, that your tactics can be countered. We're declaring independence, and we're not alone." Meanwhile, in a hastily constructed diplomatic center on Earth, Ambassador Ha met with representatives from dozens of formerly subjugated species. The meeting room was a strange mix of Earth furnishings and alien comfort arrangements, symbolizing the new cooperation between different worlds. "Earth stands ready to share everything we've learned," He announced, gesturing to displays showing their hybrid technology. "Our engineers have already adapted our innovations to work with your existing systems. Together, we can end the Kraxan Empire's reign of conquest." Back in the Kraxan Council chamber, more alarming reports arrived. The Centauri mining colonies had seized control of their orbital facilities. The manufacturing worlds of the Sirius sector had turned their production lines to weapons based on human designs. Even the remote agricultural planets were refusing to send food shipments to Kraxan military bases. "This is unprecedented," whispered one council member to another. "No species has ever inspired such widespread rebellion. These humans haven't just resisted us, they've created a revolution." Jin received an urgent message showing human diplomatic vessels arriving at various rebel worlds, carrying technical advisors and modified weapons. The humans were freely sharing their innovations, teaching others how to combine Kraxan technology with local systems for maximum effectiveness. Ambassador Ha's diplomatic efforts were proving as successful as Earth's military resistance. "We don't seek to replace the Kraxan as conquerors," she told the gathered representatives. Earth believes in self-determination. We'll help you defend yourselves, then leave you to chart your own course. This approach won them more allies than any show of force could have. Species that had suffered under Kraxan rule for generations found hope in Earth's example. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, teaching them how to modify their equipment for greater effectiveness. The crisis deepened as more worlds declared independence. The Kraxan Empire had always maintained control through technological superiority and fear. Now, with their weaknesses exposed and their mystique shattered, their entire system of control was crumbling. The humans understand something we never did, observed one of the rebel leaders during a secure communication with Earth. True strength doesn't come from having the most advanced technology. It comes from creativity, adaptability, and cooperation. Jin watched helplessly as centuries of Kraxan dominance unraveled. Human diplomatic ships were appearing throughout their territory, always arriving with practical aid and technical knowledge rather than demands or threats. Every world they visited became another crack in the Empire's foundation. Ambassador He established a network of cooperation between formerly isolated worlds. Species that had never been allowed to communicate under Kraxan rule were now sharing resources and knowledge. Human teachers helped them understand the principles behind Kraxan technology, while Earth's military advisors taught them guerrilla tactics and asymmetric warfare. The humans aren't just defeating us militarily, Jin realized as he reviewed the latest reports. They're dismantling our entire system of control. They're showing our subjects that they don't need us. The rebellion spread faster than anyone had anticipated. Worlds that had been loyal to the Empire for centuries now saw an alternative. The humans had proven that resistance wasn't just possible, it could be successful. In Earth's diplomatic center, He received messages from more worlds seeking alliance. Each new partner brought unique knowledge and resources to the growing coalition. Human adaptability combined with alien technologies in ways that created entirely new possibilities. The Kraxan Empire, which had seemed invincible just months before, found itself fighting a war on multiple fronts. Their military forces, trained to crush primitive resistance, had no answer for the combination of human ingenuity and alien determination. "We should have seen this coming," Jin told his advisors as another sector declared independence. "The humans didn't just defeat our armies, they defeated our idea of superiority. They showed the galaxy that innovation and cooperation are stronger than raw power." As the crisis deepened, the empire that had dominated space for centuries faced an uncomfortable truth. Their greatest mistake hadn't been attacking Earth. It had been showing the galaxy that their power wasn't absolute. The humans had done more than defend their world. They had given hope to countless others, and hope was proving to be the most powerful weapon of all. The revolution that began with Earth's resistance was becoming an unstoppable force for change in the galaxy. The age of Kraxan dominance was ending, replaced by something new. An era of cooperation and shared knowledge, sparked by humanity's refusal to submit to conquest. The U.S. Defiance hung in space above Earth, its hull a testament to human ingenuity. The vessel combined the best of Earth's engineering with advanced alien technology, creating something entirely new. Through its viewing windows, both Earth and Kraxan representatives could see their homeworld's stars twinkling in the distance. Admiral Ta walked through the ship's corridors, noting how the humans had improved upon Kraxan designs in countless small ways. The lighting was softer, more natural. The air felt fresher. Even the artificial gravity seemed more stable. Her escort, a young Earth officer, moved with quiet confidence rather than the arrogance she had once expected from a victor. In the ship's main conference room, Ambassador He stood ready with the peace treaty. The document was both digital and physical. Humans still believed in the power of putting pen to paper. Representatives from 24 formerly subjugated worlds attended the ceremony, each now standing as equals. "Who would have thought," Ta said quietly to He before the ceremony began, "that your primitive world would change the galaxy so completely?" A smiled diplomatically. "Perhaps that was the problem, Admiral. You saw us as primitive because we hadn't reached your level of technology. You never considered that we might have other strengths. The treaty signing proceeded with representatives from all worlds taking turns to mark the historic document. Earth had insisted on fair terms, no reparations that would cripple the remaining Kraxan Empire, but strict limitations on their military power and requirements for technological sharing among all species. As she signed, Tai reflected on how thoroughly the humans had transformed galactic society. They hadn't just defeated the Kraxan, they had created something new. Their embassies across the stars focused on cultural exchange and technological cooperation. Their universities now hosted students from 100 worlds. We look forward to peaceful cooperation, He announced in her formal speech. But never forget, underestimating humanity was your first and last mistake. Her words carried no threat, just a simple statement of fact. The years that followed proved Ha's wisdom. Earth became a center of innovation as human creativity combined with alien knowledge. Their ships now explored the furthest reaches of space, not to conquer, but to learn and trade. Their cities became meeting places where different species could freely exchange ideas. The Defiance itself became a symbol of this new era. After the peace treaty, it was converted into a traveling university, visiting different worlds to share knowledge and culture. Its crew included members of every major species, working together to map the unknown regions of space. One of the most significant changes was in how species viewed technology. The humans had shown that progress wasn't just about creating more advanced devices, it was about finding new ways to use what you had. Their approach to combining technologies sparked a renaissance of innovation throughout known space. Earth's military innovations, ironically, led to lasting peace. Their demonstration that supposedly inferior forces could defeat superior ones made species think twice about starting conflicts. Instead, cooperation and mutual defense agreements became the norm. The former Kraxan Empire transformed as well. Under the treaty terms, they turned their military production facilities into research centers. Their scientists, freed from focusing solely on weapons, made breakthrough discoveries in medicine and environmental protection. Children across the galaxy grew up learning a different history than their parents. Instead of tales of Kraxan conquest, they learned about Earth's resistance and the birth of galactic cooperation. Human stories of overcoming impossible odds became popular on every world. Earth itself changed profoundly. Cities now featured architecture from a dozen worlds. Streets filled with beings of all species. Humans remained uniquely human, but their society grew richer through peaceful exchange with other cultures. Perhaps most importantly, the galaxy learned that strength came in many forms. The humans had proven that determination, creativity, and cooperation could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. This lesson sparked a new age of exploration and discovery. The U.S. Defiance continued its journey through space, no longer just Earth's first true starship, but a symbol of how far all species had come. Its crew, representing the unity of different worlds, explored new frontiers with the same spirit that had once helped humanity defeat an empire. The galaxy would never return to what it had been before humans proved themselves among the stars. The age of conquest had ended, replaced by an era of cooperation and shared discovery. And as humanity reached further into space, they carried with them the lesson they had taught the galaxy, that the greatest power comes not from dominance, but from bringing together the best in everyone. As Ambassador Ha had said in that historic moment, underestimating humanity had been the Kraxan's great mistake. But from that mistake came something better. A galaxy where every species could reach its full potential, not through conquest, but through cooperation and determination. The stars themselves seemed brighter in this new age, as ships of all worlds traveled between them not in war, but in peace and discovery. And somewhere out there, new adventures awaited, ready for all species to face them together.